brand new episode of The Witching Hour. I am Perri Nemroff. That's Haleigh Fouch, but we have been teeing up this episode with our two very special guests today for a very long time. Carter Erlinger. I'm so happy this day has finally come because he's been telling me about this for way too long.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I was just like so eager to see like even a little stitch of it now that I've seen the full episode. So happy for you. I'm so freaking happy for you guys.
I'm very glad to hear
I didn't even say the title of the damn thing.
too.
Midnight Kiss, Into the Dark, available on Hulu on December 27th. And it's something else. I've never seen anything like that. And that's probably one of the most exciting things about a project like this to me.
Yeah. That was, that was something I was saying I wanted to ask you guys about. Like, first of all right, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Tell us a little bit about your film for people who may not have heard of it, and especially Into the Dark, which is kind of a unique space in the genre filmmaking industry right now.
Right, yeah. I mean, Into the Dark is this really cool anthology series on Hulu. They have 12 episodes per year, one per month, and all produced by Blumhouse. And they're all horror holiday themed movies, and they're all around 90 minutes long, so they're like full feature films. And our film is the New Year's Eve one.
New Year's Eve.
Which is very fun. It's very festive and you know, a good party movie. And I think also ours is kind of special because it's the first queer or like gay movie in this in Into the Dark in the series. And in other places as well. It's kind of an anomaly.
I've never, like you said, I've never seen one. Have you? Not like this.
No, definitely not.
So that's something like what I was kind of teeing up there was like, do you guys tell us a little bit about the journey to getting it made, and how much do you think you were able to get it made because of the outlet of Into the Dark? Do you think this would be made somewhere else, or was it sort of a special scenario where everything all came together?
I've certainly had no luck getting any kind of queer horror, like overtly queer horror thing made anywhere else. But Erlinger, you were involved, you know, as the writer way before I was, so you can probably talk about the conception.
For me, it was, I'd always wanted to write like a gay themed slasher movie. That had been on my mind for a long time. But how this project came to be was kind of a weird situation. Like I just was brought in to pitch to Blumhouse on an episode, and all I knew was that it was supposed to be the New Year's Eve episode. They wanted it to be a slasher movie, and they wanted like a gay twist to it, which of course, like hearing that,
Blumhouse.
exactly, yeah,
they asked for it.
Yeah.
and like hearing that just got me super excited, and I was like, okay, you know, what can I do, you know, and I knew kind of the format of the show a little bit, so I came up with an idea that I thought would work. And they loved it, so it happened very quickly from there on out. That's, you know, it was kind of like a weird dream come true. But I think just the way, you know, our culture is today, I think there's a want and a need for a film like this, and I feel like both Blumhouse and Hulu were kind of, you know, smart enough to see that and be proactive about getting it. You know, they weren't waiting for somebody to bring it to them. They were like, this is what we want. They were asking for it.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things that's so interesting about the Into the Dark too is it's such a kind of speeding train. Like it's not the sort of thing where something gets bogged down in development for years and years and years. Like this, you know, from the time that you went in and pitched to the time that we actually shot was, I mean, I don't know how long it was, but it was like crazy compressed. So there was no time to like have second thoughts about like, oh my God, should we is this really, you know, what we should be doing?
Pros and cons of that. If you had a little more time to do something, what would it have been?
Everything.
Sometimes we do a would you rather game, and it's one of the questions is, would you rather have enough time and not enough money, or enough money and not enough time?
I mean, one of them is going to be compromised no matter what. I mean, you know what though? I wouldn't actually change it. I mean, I guess I would have liked a little more prep time, but you know, I mean, at the end of the day, we got everything we needed to get done. We got cast. We had enough time to shoot. Like, I guess maybe some more time to like.
Well, I would
work together, you know, before we started.
Right. I mean, we were kind of, you know, like like you said, it was just like a train, and it's like not even jumping on the train; it's like running to catch the train,
To catch
and
up
like just
with
hold
it,
on
yeah.
for dear life.
And then getting dragged a little bit at the beginning before you get your footing.
But I think the good thing about like having it happen so quick is that you have to just kind of trust your instincts.
Yeah.
You have to just like you can't second guess yourself. You just have to, I'm putting on the page, what I think is going to work, and then I get the feedback from from Carter or from the Blumhouse people and the Hulu people, but I'm not like second guessing myself. I wait for the feedback and I make adjustments. But there's something like exhilarating about working like that.
And then like at the end of the day, you like realize, okay, like my instincts are good, or like, oh, that was a big mistake. I mean, it's the same thing in shooting. It's like you don't have, there's no time to okay, let's shoot it from over here. Okay, now let's also shoot it from over here, and let's try one where you're like, it's like go. You're shooting it, and it's happening fast.
Oh my God, I have so many questions. But the first thing that came to mind as you were explaining the process is one of the coolest things about Into the Dark is this community of filmmakers that it creates. So when you guys first got going with this, did you turn to anyone in particular just to ask for advice or a little insight into the process?
Me, honestly, I came on board and literally went directly to a tech scout for locations and casting. So like there wasn't even like the luxury of time for that. I mean, I just sort of trusted that everybody else on the crew, had done this before at this pace and done it successfully. And, and you just kept hearing like, we'll make it happen.
Oh, that's
and you just kind of trust in them. Did you talk to people?
No, it was the same. Like there was just no time to do it. But like now that we've finished ours, funny enough, like one of the directors of an upcoming film is somebody that I know and that you know, and he reached out because he had seen that I had written the episode, so he reached out to me when he got the job. So and we talked a little bit about it, but yeah, I've had like 2 or 3 conversations since then. They've been like, will you talk to a director that's a little nervous and see it, just tell them that it's going to be okay. So I've had a couple conversations since, but I didn't get to have that conversation.
Oh, that's interesting. What's the advice you're passing forward?
Or
I guess the phrase is paying forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that I said is like, make sure that the script is shootable. Like you can't have like a crazy 17-page action sequence that involves, explosions and blood, all this stuff, and then expect to be able to shoot it in half a day.
Even though we kind of do have a sequence, we
do.
have
but think about what that sequence was at the when we started.
Yeah, that was much more elaborate for a while. I still feel like watching it. It's very action heavy.
It's really elaborate now. I feel like, but what the first version was.
Kind of
that was one of the things where we were like, okay, I don't think that we can shoot this.
I have so many questions about specific things and just like how you are, because there's you tease a scene here, and it's like I could think of a couple things that probably fit that category of how do you do this so quickly and without having enough time.
Maybe we get a little spoilery towards the end.
Okay, I'm glad you said that. I didn't want to push that on anybody, but I feel like
save a little time for some specifics.
Yeah.
It is kind of necessary, and we can clip it out and run it later. I also wanted to ask you a little bit about your collaboration right from the start. I know you didn't have too much time, but you get Erlinger's script. What is your first impression of the script, and what was kind of one of the key notes that you guys discussed to give us what we got in the end?
I got the script, and I read it, and my first reaction was like, this is the movie that I wanted when I was a kid growing up, watching horror movies, not seeing myself in those movies. It was like an immediate connection to the characters and the friend group and the genre, obviously. I read it like on a Friday night at like 10 o'clock, and 9 a.m. on Monday, I'm on a call with Erlanger and the Blumhouse people, talking about it. And, from that point on, it was pretty quick. I mean, we were really together the whole time, like in the week and a half that we were.
And like that call, like when I heard that you had the script, I was like, oh my God, that's so amazing. But like but he's not gonna want to do it, But then we had the call, and like not only were you so excited about it, you had like done a lot of prep. You had already done like a lookbook and everything, and it was just like, I think we were on the same page, like literally from like the first minute of the conversation, at least that's how I felt.
I felt the same way.
You two make me so happy. This is like one of the greatest things because it's like one of my favorite human beings in the entire world. And then the director of The Ruins. I was so excited. My mom would hate me if I didn't say this really early on, but my mom's favorite movie of all time is The Ruins.
Wow, I like your mom. Nice.
It's like whenever the whole Nemiroff family is in the same house, there's no quicker way to get us all into the same room than either putting on Final Destination or The Ruins.
Perfect.
Like we will
I like
all be there
that.
watching.
I like that.
I am curious though. So something like The Ruins comes out, and I think at this point there's a lot of people out there that would look at that as, you know, I guess I'd go as far to say being an iconic genre movie. So what happens immediately after that movie comes out for you? Are you getting like tons of offers and everything?
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting lots of like sort of mediocre genre scripts, to be honest. I mean, that was, you know, it's about 10 years ago. So that was sort of the height of the remake moment. And, you know, I mean, The Ruins was a script that I fell in love with. And, you know, the horror scripts are often not as great as you want them to be. Like you'll get like 40 pages into it and be like, oh, this is going to be amazing. And then at some point you're just like, well, so I got a lot of that stuff. And I'm a fashion photographer, like as my sort of day job. So like I sort of went back to doing that and kind of, you know, disappear. You know, I was like, I don't have to take a movie that I am not passionate about, so I'd rather wait and find something that I really love. So rather than doing like another big studio movie, I did this movie, Jamie Marks is Dead, which is like the kind of movie that I imagined would be my first movie, like a little indie, like, you know, kind of Sundance movie that I sort of did it backwards.
Well, the path seemed to work well.
Yeah.
Now I can kind of see if you're a photographer as your day job, I could see that influence in the movie. I mean, even in Midnight Kiss too, that's a big component of it.
Yeah.
It's very effective too.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
For you, like you said you wanted to write this sort of queer slasher for a long time. So when you have that in your head for all these decades and then you have to write it super, super fast, what sort of survived that transition and how much of it that was originally in your head didn't make the leap, so to speak?
It was kind of funny. Actually, a lot of it did not make because, you know, I think because I had these ideas for such a long time, they had become quite elaborate, like in terms of production and scale. And I knew that like that wasn't possible. Like, you know, the way these films are produced and the time you have to do them in, you know, you can't have too many characters, you can't have too many locations. So I kind of like stripped a lot of, I think the stuff that mostly survived were some like death ideas, like kill scenes that I kind of like imported. But what I really wanted to do was present like a group of gay characters and friends that feel like real people, that don't feel like, you know, stereotypes and don't feel like the butt of the joke or like just the supporting character in somebody else's film. And that's something, you know, maybe the characters in my other ideas were different characters, but like that kind of making them feel real and relatable. Not necessarily like likable, because I think there's a bunch of characters in this film that are not likable. But like making sure that like you kind of know where everyone is coming from and that you kind of get their motivations and that they feel grounded in some sort of like reality that at least, you know, hopefully, you know, everyone can identify with, but definitely that, you know, gay audiences can be like, oh, I haven't seen this character portrayed before, but I know who this is, and
or this relationship. I think that there's
Yes.
a lot of relationships in the film that don't get that much screen time.
Yeah.
In, you know, not just horror cinema, but like any cinema.
You are extremely successful with this group. And I mean, the characters are great. And then just watching them all sell everything, because what you just described is kind of what I felt while watching it. You know, I know that maybe some of them aren't like super likable, but it's a group of characters that you really do enjoy spending time with. And I don't know, some of the comedic beats in this just work so well. And it's like so much of it is their delivery. It's just so pitch perfect. And also, I mean, speaking of the other Thad, the editing in this too. I mean, it's really just like spot on timing.
It was so much fun. Like, so I got to be on set a lot, and just, you know, it's like, you know, when you're like sitting just watching the screens, and you know, you have no, you know, I'm writing something, and you know, I have a certain idea of like how I imagined them, you know, saying certain things, and then they show up and they're basically doing it either exactly the way I had thought of it or better, which is like such a fun thing to witness.
Yeah.
They're just such a pleasure.
Yeah, well, it's so much of that, it was from the casting too. I mean, a lot of our cast, they knew each other already, or they were familiar with each other from meeting in auditions, and like from day one at the fittings, it was very clear that they were connected and like they were gonna have fun with it. And so like all of that ended up on the screen.
So with the speeding train mentality, how much do you get to take part in the casting process and then the prep process leading up to going into production?
It wasn't cast before I came on board, so luckily I was able to to do all of that, and ended up with everyone that I love.
They're so good.
Yeah.
Something I'm curious about from the sort of like Hulu being streaming, which can open a lot of doors in terms of creative freedom, but I don't what is their notes process like? How R-rated were you allowed to be versus what were there limitations on how much blood and swearing and sex and all that?
Well, from the writer point of view, like as I was writing, I was being, especially with the very first draft, I felt like I was being very careful. Like, I don't want to push it too far because they're going to ask me to pull back. But then they were like, oh, no, you can go further. Like, yeah, make it more sexy, make it more gay.
And then in the end, on the last draft, we did a final pass, like the Sunday night before Monday morning, where we sat down and we're like, no, he's naked in this scene.
Yeah.
Let's add a shower scene. Let's add more nudity. The Go-Go Boys, they're naked. Like we went through and did like a nudity pass.
You got so many butts in your movie. I can't believe it.
Yeah. I mean, but they were great. I mean, I think the nudity thing also came down to actors and what they're comfortable with, obviously, because you want them to be comfortable with what they're doing. But there wasn't any like it's too bloody, it's too sexy, it's too it was all kind of embracing the the spirit of it.
And I think also they were that embracing because I think they both kind of felt that we had a point of view, that we kind of knew what we were doing and kind of we knew the audience that it was intended for, and I think they trusted us to kind of
because they knew it was our story. It was a story that was ours to tell. In a way that. They were like, okay, we're gonna trust you on this one.
Is there any kind of into the dark house style? Like any kind of like visual things that need to stay consistent from film to film, or is it entirely up to you?
It's entirely, it was entirely. I mean, that's what's so great about them. I think is that each one is. I mean, even though a lot of the crew is the same and they share DPs with other episodes, like the DP Lynn who shot this one, it looks completely different from any of the other episodes that he's done. So it's really just down to what that story requires.
So I have a million story scene spoiler questions, but before we get there, just to keep it kind of spoiler free, was there any particular sequence that you found the most challenging to shoot, just to kind of tease a little bit?
That final 10-minute, 12-minute
I had a
sequence.
Feeling you were going to go in that direction.
Oh my gosh, that was tough. There's a lot of elements in that sequence, and it was very tough.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, a lot of characters, a lot of stunts, a lot of, a lot. Which I mean, I don't know how much you want to talk about it, but that was definitely something when I the whole because we shot that the first week that we were shooting, and I knew that I needed more. So the whole time, every day, I'd say, okay, so when are we going to schedule the pickup shots for that? For scene 98 or whatever it was. 15 or 16 days? 16 days.
Oh my God.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And it was insane. Even watching the movie yesterday, I was like, I can't believe this was shot in 16 days.
Yeah.
Like,
well, the luxury of that also is that there's nothing that didn't end up in the movie.
Yeah,
we didn't shoot anything extra. There's one tiny little half-page scene that isn't in it, but everything that's in that movie was on the page, and everything that's on the page is in the movie.
What do you like to have in your hand when you go to set? What are the tools you need, or the coffee vice, something like that?
I mean, I like a coffee. I really like a yellow pen or pencil.
That's so specific, and I love that.
Is that a good luck thing?
No, I don't know. I'd jump from yellow pencil to yellow pencil to yellow pen.
All right.
And I mean, notes on what I'm going to do, diagrams and shot lists, all that basic stuff.
Okay.
In
Sounds
the-
like a
Nothing too
all right.
crazy other than my yellow like
I just
writing.
loved how specific that
Well, I
was,
just
and
remember
we
that
got
it was
an
actually here.
example.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, it must be easy to find at least.
Yeah.
You know, it stands out. There's a
Yeah,
practical
it's mine.
element.
It's mine.
That's right. It's like when you get a crazy lighter and someone tries to steal, like, no,
Yeah,
I bought that one in case you came along. In the writing stage, do they, like, because they have done quite a few of these by now, is there a little Bible of like, here's the other holidays and what they did? Or do they just like assume you'll know?
No, I think it's more that happens. I think more in kind of the pitching process.
Okay.
They'll be like, if you come in with an idea and they'll be like, oh, we already did something like that, or we already have a script for something like that we're about to shoot. But because they asked for this specifically, like
Right.
this kind of the very basic concept came from them. I never, because I had met with them before on other, potential episodes and stuff. And, I did have, I remember, like, I can't remember exactly what the idea was, but they were like, oh, we already have, like, something set in a high school, so probably we're not going to do that, at least not this season. But yeah, that's kind of, I can imagine it being a little bit of a problem for them because they're making so many movies and there's only so many holidays.
Yeah.
So it's like, how many different variations of a Christmas horror movie can you make? But I think they're doing a pretty,
I know.
I think they're doing a pretty good job of keeping things varied and
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think part of that comes from working with completely different teams and different directors, and like, so Sophia's New Year's Eve episode is obviously going to be
Very
like
different.
super different from what we did.
Yeah.
So this is like a silly, stupid question, but when you guys found out that you got New Year's Eve, was that like your holiday of choice? Is that what you really would have wanted, or would you have picked something else?
Oh, I was super excited about
Yeah.
it because
Yeah.
I've done a couple of other things and they've been maybe more like the last thing that I've been working on was very moody and very kind of like, atmospheric and kind of sad, somber.
and heavy. Yeah, and this is like bright and fun
Yeah.
And I
and
think-
glossy and
And when you hear New Year's Eve, that's immediately like, I kind of knew what the tone was going to be even before I kind of sat down to figure out the story. I was like, okay, there has to be a sense of like party and community and like fun.
this is how gays do New Year's
This
Eve.
is how gays do New Year's Eve.
Welcome.
I've never done. The funny thing is, like, I've never even been to Palm Springs. So, like, the entire, all the Palm Springs stuff is just like stuff that I've heard from other people. And this is my fantasy version of what
Yeah.
like New Year's Eve at Palm
Yeah.
Springs is.
I could see how it would be a good fit for a holiday with someone's fashion photography as well.
Yeah.
It's a very glitzy
Yeah,
holiday.
very glitzy, very
Yes,
stylish.
I love her jacket.
Oh my
Yes,
God.
so good.
Oh my
right?
God, yeah.
I want it.
Yeah.
You know who I could see wearing that jacket? Christy. You know
Oh,
Christy too.
absolutely.
Yes, yes, yes.
That is a Christy Puchko jacket if I ever
Absolutely.
saw
It gets
one.
caught in car doors though. It was actually like practical, not so practical.
How about that house? How did you come to find that, and how much is kind of laid out exactly as we see in the movie, and how much are you kind of cheating for your needs?
It was a complete cheat. I mean, that because the script took place in a house that was on multiple levels and and
There's a basement.
there was there's so much, and just 3 days before we started shooting, when we finally locked in the house, it was like, okay, this is our house. And now we have to do the house pass on the script, where we make sure that everything kind of matches what we actually have. There's no staircase, there's no basement. But it was a great house, and so it was a cinematic sort of photogenic house.
It fits the vibe
Yeah,
very, very
yeah,
well.
totally, yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think it in the end, I think it worked to the film's benefit because like it just kind of simplified a lot of the
Yeah.
action, and I think it just made it probably flow smoother. Because there was a lot of like they're going up the stairs and into this room, and then they're going back down the stairs, and
And then they get caught in the hallway. Yeah, and like where this house, it was very much like, okay, it's one.
It's like an L.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can sort of you can sort of see everything from one, which was
You
tough,
just like
but it was
gain
also
a sense of geography
Yeah.
very,
Right.
very quickly,
yes,
which
it's
is
all centered around the
important.
pool. So as long as you know where the pool is,
It's
you know how the
true.
rest of the house.
It's
fits.
important in a movie where like a slasher is stalking people too, to establish
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
geography super quickly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Do you want to do it?
I
can
kind of do.
feel you.
I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm like bubbling over right now with very specific questions. So Actually, all right, before we move on to that, let's do our final two questions.
Oh, yes, our very
Erlinger,
challenging
you can answer
question.
one of them, but I know what your answer is for the other. So the first question we like to ask is, do you want to pick one?
You have them so specifically in mind.
don't know.
Okay, yes.
The two.
Okay.
I don't know which one you want to ask.
rules for what Erlinger could do. I don't know what's happening.
Because I
Do
just know his
whatever you want
answer.
me to do.
Our sort of first go-to is what in the genre, whether it's a book, a video game, a comic book, movie, whatever, TV series, have you been seeing, reading, watching that you're super hyped about and you want other people to know about?
Okay. Well, okay, so I read a book the other day that I loved.
In one day?
And no, not in one. No, I can write very quickly. I can't read that quickly. No, a book called Ill Will by Dan Cheon, and I've kind of been obsessed with this book since I read it. It's like borderline horror. I mean, I would call it horror just because it's so creepy, but I guess it falls more under kind of a crime mystery novel. But it's written in a way that like really gets under your skin. And it had been a while since I read something that like really kind of like blew my mind like that. So it came out a few years ago, and I think I was like looking into like, oh, who has the rights to this?
This is the one with the shopping cart in the snow on the cover, right?
This
Is
is
that-
the cover. I was just looking.
Oh,
it
it's
up.
just, okay, there's no shopping cart.
Yeah, that's the one that I have.
That looks like a wave.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
so.
I totally
For
was
whatever
misguided with
reason,
my
when you
shopping cart in the
described like a
snow.
shopping cart in the snow, I'm like, what is that? I must read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about like a psychologist that gets kind of obsessed with a series of murders that have been happening for like years and years, and like it kind of becomes like, is he seeing a pattern? Is this a serial killer, or is he just making up a pattern here? And then it just gets more and more kind of twisty and turny, and yeah, it's very, very excellent.
I need a new audiobook, so maybe I'll
you
turn to
should
that next.
But I don't know. It would be interesting to hear how the audiobook is, because the way it's written, like it has very specific things it does in the language, and it'll leave off unfinished sentences in a way where you're reading and you're just like, wait, is this a mistake in the printing? But then it keeps happening again and again, and you start to realize, oh, this is starting to make a little bit more sense, like in the context of the book. It's hard to describe, so I wonder how it would be.
The thing that I just connected it to is The Outsider, because The Outsider at the beginning, it plays almost like a police transcript. So it's a weird thing to be able to see on the page versus listening to someone do the narration for it.
Right.
I feel like people should know that you're the reason that I got super into Stephen King.
King.
How many
really?
years
Yeah.
were you
Oh.
like, here is my Stephen King collection, and you even gave me your misery book, and I think
Right.
I read like 10 pages and then put it in a drawer somewhere. But now I'm well read on Stephen King
Yeah.
because you got the ball rolling.
I'm kind of caught up on Stephen King now. Like I used to because he's written so much. So there was a period where I was like, oh, I can always go back to like this book that I haven't read and this book that I haven't read. And now I think I read almost everything except maybe the newest one. So, but yeah, he's still
The
my
Institute?
favorite. The Institute.
Yeah.
The Institute is well worth a read. I
Is
loved
it?
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say Paul Tremblay's Cabin at the End of the World.
Oh yeah.
Have you guys read that?
I have not
You
read
can also listen to it on audio.
Excellent.
Which is like another, which is also like a chilling kind of home invasion / end of the world / queer narrative that is really frightening and horrifying and troubling.
Now I'm getting stressed because I don't know which one to start with.
Well, you could read Ill Will
Good
and
problem
listen to
to
Cabin at
have.
the End of the World.
Right.
if you want,
Okay,
you
I
know?
like that.
Yeah.
The Cabin at the End of the World does sound like it's probably a very cinematic opportunity for someone to adapt it
For
to.
sure. But
Yep.
also very tricky. There's like stuff that happens in that book that I'm like, I don't know. Like that would be so cool to do it, but like I don't know who would do it. Like
Yeah.
maybe some, maybe a streaming service, maybe Hulu will. Who
I'm
knows?
into it.
But the cool one thing about that book that is also, like when you have a genre like home invasion that you kind of feel, oh, this has been played out, like there's nothing new you can do, and then a book like that comes and it's like, oh, this
It
is
takes you
such a
completely by
fresh,
surprise. Like you've never seen a home invasion or read a home invasion story like this one.
yeah.
Okay.
We're just
very
like
into that.
crowdsourcing really good recommendations,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Now I know
That
what
is
I'm doing
this
over
is
the
called.
holiday
That
break.
is what it's
Perfect.
turned
Thanks,
into,
guys.
though. The other question we like to ask, it's so random, I know your answer. Do you have any pets?
I don't.
Do
I
we
wish
still
I
love
did.
you, Erlinger?
I do not have any pets because
Yeah.
I'm severely allergic to like every animal
Even, like,
that
doodles?
has hair.
Or like,
like hypoallergenic
yeah.
dogs.
Yeah, no, I don't know what that like means because I've never been
it
around
means you're like a
hypoallergenic
defective person.
I know,
kidding,
no,
I'm
but
kidding.
it's very like I go to people's parties or something and they have a dog or a cat and like I'm dying in a few minutes.
Do you know where Dewey's favorite place to sit when Erlanger comes over?
No.
Like as close to him as humanly possible.
Okay, gotcha.
That tends
Murderous intent.
I think the animals they can sense something because it's not just Dewey.
You get real
No, I
nervous.
remember shooting Child Eater in that house, and
Right, that
they're-
cat was
yeah,
like I was
It's like
dying
all
for
up in
half
your
of that
face.
shoot.
I remember.
I had to go out of the house like every 10 minutes just to breathe.
This doesn't sound fun.
No, it's not fun.
Do you have any pets?
I don't.
You guys.
I wish that I had dogs, but I travel a lot, and I've always
Yeah.
told myself that I want big dogs, but then not the ones that can travel with you.
you can't
and-
travel with a big
Yeah,
dog.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
I would love to have a pet if I could.
Sad.
You can have a fish.
I did have turtles once.
Did you?
Yeah.
Were
very
they New
big
York City turtles?
No, they were in Iceland.
Okay.
They were yeah. And then I gave
They
them
don't
away.
shed.
They don't shed. No, well, they do shed like.
Oh, like
flakes.
skin
Yeah,
flakes.
no. That
yeah.
now that I say
Ew.
that, they actually do. I think my parents at home actually have a Russian box turtle that they've had since I think Lonnie was 10 and I was 13, and Reno is still alive and thriving.
Oh
and
yeah, the turtles.
and
will
Reno's
outlast
gonna
all of
outlive
us.
all of us.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you guys so much for watching the non-spoiler portion of our conversation on Midnight Kiss. We do have a significant amount of spoiler content coming your way soon. We got to wait for Midnight Kiss to hit Hulu on December 27th. So come back then, check out the spoiler conversation. But for now, you've officially survived the witching hour.